Time is ticking in Philadelphia for the Birds to make their final important moves as training camp is nearly here. But will they focus on one of their own or actually reach outside the nest? Plus, while the hype around Drew Mukuba is already building, an unexpected injury update that helps the Birds. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Okay, we're actually under the 2-week mark from day one of training camp, which is crazy. The expectations, as we expect, are absolutely sky high. Not just for the returning Super Bowl champions, but also for Howie Roseman to put together the finishing touches on this current roster, which looks like could be happening any day now. First, though, with training camp right around the corner, I think it is important to at least go through the timeline of what to expect the next couple of weeks because it's going to get here and a lot's going to happen. Report day is Tuesday, July 22nd, where all the Eagles will show up at the NovaCare complex and do their check-in procedures via the player performance team, which includes a physical, conditioning test, and of course any other meetings or recovery sessions they need before day one of practice. That first practice is on the field one day later, so July 23rd. We expect a lot of similar stuff to OTAs and minicamp, no pads, lots of individual drills, and a touch of 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. Now, of course, keep in mind, I'll be following who starts where at the big position battles from the start, but it is likely the veterans will get the start early in camp before the young challengers officially get their chances. There is some hierarchy to this, just like how Keely Ringo was the starter at corner day one last year, and then eventually we saw Isaiah Rodgers and Q get their shots. Then pads are likely going to go on around 5 days after that because last year they reported on the 23rd and then they actually had pads on the 30th, but they get full contact practices pretty darn early in the week. Next, of course, first preseason game is actually just 16 days after the Birds report, which is crazy. That'll be the Week 1 preseason opener against the Cincinnati Bengals, with 2 more preseason games, first at home against the Browns on August 16th, and then the final one away against the Jets on August 22nd. Now, Philly's lone public practice, as you guys know, will be held at the Link on August 10th. I actually have a bunch of tickets for this to actually give away as we get closer, so drop a like and subscribe, that way you're entered. Now, as the rest of the National Football League begins to spin up for training camp, the next couple of days are going to be fascinating. There'll be a lot of new contract extensions happening, people trying to get inked before day one of training camp, and Philadelphia might be in the mix. For example, we expect names like Aiden Hutchinson, Isaiah Likely, Sauce Gardner, and Trey Smith to all sign new deals in the coming days, and I do hope Howie Roseman will follow suit. Perhaps giving safety Blankenship his long overdue extension, as the Birds' best safety is entering a contract year and is making very little money. Most of the time, teams want to get these last-minute extensions done before training camp starts, not only to keep players happy, but also to make sure they're not worried in the back of their minds about some sort of freak injury derailing their career. And I do think Blankenship has earned a new contract extension. I know the national media, the National Football League, doesn't recognize him as a top 10 safety just yet. I think he is there, but he'll be for sure confirmed in this coming 2025 season. But it's not just me saying this. How about fellow safety Tristan McCullum, who was on Josh Davis's show earlier this week, raving about what it's like being in the same building and same room as Blankenship.
You know, he's one of the heartbeats of the defense, and he's one of the voices of the defense, and, you know, he's the voice of the secondary. He makes sure that everyone's on the same page. So going out there and playing with him, you know, he makes the game easy. He makes the game simple. At safety, you know, you want to have a relationship with the other person on the other side of the field, and it's very easy to go out there and play with him because, you know, he makes sure that everyone's on the same page. He makes sure that everyone's calm, and he plays the game with like a level of calm, but also a high level of aggression that, you know, it's great to watch. You know, his consistency is undeniable.
Now, I must point out that the best Eagles reporter going right now, Anthony DeBona, mentioned a week or so ago that a source told him inside the building the Birds' top brass have not had talks with Blankenship so far about an extension. So maybe they're going to wait. Honestly, I don't know. But the fact they haven't talked to him yet is not a good sign in my opinion. I want to sign him right now because millions of dollars could be at stake. Also, I want to give a massive shout out to the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek. We are finally in July, which means Eagles training camp is right around the corner, which also means it's the perfect time to grab your Eagles preseason or regular season tickets, and of course SeatGeek makes it easier than ever. Plus, they also have other tickets besides just Eagle games, including Philadelphia Phillies tickets all season long, but also comedy shows, music festivals, and more with over 70,000 listed events. As you guys know, I used SeatGeek a ton this past season, including for the NFC Championship game, which was absolutely incredible. They make ticket buying so darn easy. For instance, their rating system, scale of 1 to 10, to make sure you get the best deal possible by looking for green dots, which mean good deals, yellow and red, I normally pass on those, but there are always a ton of green dot deals. And you guys know I had to come through for you, and so right now, SeatGeek is offering all of my viewers 10% off any tickets they want by using promo code MOTT10. Just download the SeatGeek app right now to your iPhone by clicking the link down below in the description box to go ahead and get my promo code MOTT10 added to your profile automatically so you can start saving on tickets all summer long and get the best deal possible for those Eagles games at the link. Now, moving on, the next few days are also the last chance for Philadelphia to make any sort of outside additions they feel they want to have in-house for day one of training camp. For instance, Asante Samuel Jr., a name we talked about a ton the past couple of months. Now, I've detailed Samuel all off season long and how teams have been waiting for him to be medically cleared. Haven't gotten word that he has been yet, but Samuel reportedly did get interest from the Dolphins this past week, who of course just shipped cornerback Jalen Ramsey off to Pittsburgh. There's a need there. But then Samuel's dad, actually former Eagle Asante Samuel himself, publicly called the Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel a pushover and claimed the Finns GM has, quote, no backbone.
Dolphins had no reason to trade Jalen Ramsey other than they're sensitive. There's no leadership in the Dolphins organization. Mike McDaniels is a pushover. Chris Greer, the general manager, he has no backbone. These guys over here at the Miami Dolphins, they are running this team like a little league team. No one can stand up to the players. They're terrified of their own players, and they have no control over their players.
Now, of course, Asante Samuel Sr. is not Asante Samuel Jr., and so the Dolphins could ignore dad and go ahead and sign the son. That might still happen. To me, it just doesn't make sense for Samuel to wait until an injury happens during training camp and then sign somewhere. If I was him at that age, I'd want to sign as soon as possible before day one of training camp. So if Philly's interested, I don't think they are, but we talk about it enough. If they're interested, now's the time to go ahead and pull the trigger. Either way, I'm not going to hold my breath, just like I'm not holding my breath for any sort of Justin Simmons update the next couple of days, because unlike Asante Samuel Jr., he's going to sign during training camp. He's going to wait for either Philadelphia or another team to have an injury, or more likely in the Eagles' case, not like their current situation at safety, even though I do. Then they make the phone call and sign Justin Simmons. Don't expect him to sign anytime soon. Now, staying with the safety battle and why I do think they're not going to sign Justin Simmons, and I love what McCollum also told Josh Davis about rookie Drew Mukuba, who he mentioned was a very high IQ football player and seems ready to contribute in a big way like day one. Likely why Philadelphia spent such a high pick on him, because Fangio clearly likes his rookies, especially rookie DBs, to assimilate as quickly as possible, and it sounds like Drew is no different.
Oh yeah, he's very bright, and he has a very bright future ahead of him. Like he's played a lot of football in college, and you could tell, he gets out there, he's very, very smart, very witty, is able to pick up things really, really quickly. And, I think as soon as he can pick up the game on a mental standpoint, his physical attributes will take the rest. He's like I said, he has a very bright future. Very excited to see the impact he's going to make for our team.
Of course, I mentioned earlier, don't expect Drew Mukuba to start week 1 or week 2 of training camp, even if he is the best guy in that room, because Philadelphia, they like to work on a hierarchy situation. My guess is Sidney Brown, day 1, is your starting safety alongside Blankenship. But as I said, it's going to start to mold and change, just like how, Quinyon Mitchell didn't start day 1 last year. Cooper DeJean barely played at all in minicamp and obviously preseason, and so I expect it to be a slow burn for Mukuba, but once it's official that he's ready to rock, he can vault into the starter spot, no questions asked. Now, other things to keep an eye on the next couple of weeks, injuries. As for one, we know Nakobe Dean isn't going to be doing much of anything, at least the first couple of weeks, but then the question becomes, will Jahad Campbell? We likely won't know for sure until he actually puts the pads on, but I do expect practice 1, padless practice 1 at least, to have Campbell in his helmet doing the full slate of linebacker drills. Will he be able to hit once the pads come on? That's the real question. Other injuries to watch, obviously Cam Jurgens, who, like Dean, I don't think will be ready next week with that back issue, but again, we don't know for sure. Keep an eye on that. And lastly, Nolan Smith and his tricep, who I think this most recent video from a workout just a few days ago in California, it's a good sign that his tricep is ready to rock, but keep an eye on him. You'll remember Nolan Smith told myself and Josh Davis at the NovaCare Complex about 2 months ago now, the final hurdle is actually striking with that tricep, actually hitting people, moving off of tackles. And so the fact you saw in that video he was striking a dummy is a good sign. Now, dummy is not a real human, and so we got to see him actually do it when the pads come on. But keep an eye on striking for Nolan Smith. If he can do it early, that means he's good to go, and he'll be 100%. Moving on to another injury that does affect Philadelphia, and it's actually Bucs star offensive lineman Tristan Wirfs, who now missed the first 4 games of the season due to knee surgery that apparently occurred this past week. Now, this does, of course, matter for Philadelphia only because their Week 4 opponent is the annual Tampa Bay Sweatfest down at Raymond James Stadium, so officially no Wirfs could definitely help the Birds finally get over the Tampa Bay hump. Obviously too early to know, but I bet somewhere Nolan Smith is smiling about the possibilities against Baker Mayfield. Of course, all of the above I just mentioned is about all the Eagles news happening right now. We are in the final 2 weeks of the season before the season actually begins, and so it's a little dead, but try to give you guys all the latest news that we have, which is why I hopped on a live show with Josh Davis a couple of days ago to go deep in all of this, go deep in the safety battle, go deep in Nolan Smith's injury, go deep at Jalen Hurts. We talked about all of this and more during our live stream. Hope you guys enjoy. The real question that we're going to have the next couple of weeks is who's starting where, And how are these young people looking in terms of potentially winning starting jobs or being contributors? That's why I thought your Tristan McCollum interview was fascinating, because Tristan McCollum is one of these guys in this group of 4 battling for the safety position with Gardner Johnson gone. And the Eagles are talking about him a lot. Eagle fans are not. And so he could be one of these names that kind of vaults into the spotlight the next couple of weeks. And we go, Tristan McCollum started at safety alongside Reed Blankenship for the 4th day in a row. Something's happening here, because he's one of the guys who's been in this system long, has been healthy in this system, whereas Sidney Brown is not.
Yes. Yeah. He's and that's one of those kind of the reasons for going back and looking at it. But he's got the stats to prove. You go back and look at even the preseason. He was, I think, 2nd with the team in tackles. Now, I know that he's getting a lot more reps than the starters, of course, because everybody's basically resting. But that second wave, as you're talking about, he's got the reps. Fangio's praised him for being a really good playmaker on special teams. He's made several of those plays, and we've seen it in the past. So, it's keep an eye out for it. I was making the case for people that did not see the video yet, making the case of like, well, there's some similarities, not fully like a Zach Bond. I'm not saying we got an all-pro in the making there, but it's some similarities of when Vic Fangio says a name, even if it's in passing. Vic Fangio is not flighty. He's not just like no offense to Sirianni, but he's not going to list out the entire roster when you ask him, hey, who do you think's got a legit chance? He's not going to go down the line there. If he says a name, then there's a legit possibility, and especially the fact that he was given Sidney Brown and Andrew Mukuba, and rather than just talk about them, because it's not like they said, hey, who do you think's going to win the safety job? They said, how do you feel about the competition between Sidney Brown and Andrew Mukuba?
Right.
Even if you believe in Tristan McCollum, you don't have to bring him up. You could say, well, yeah, Drew's got some work to do. He's a rookie. You got to figure things out. Sidney, we'll see. He's got the skills, but he's got to, figure out the system, the scheme more, blah, 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 whatever, and just move on. Yet he still goes, and Tristan too. Tristan's in there. He's competing for it. So then you're like, okay, all right. Let's see what you're doing, Vic. There's maybe a possibility. So, but yes, it was a blast to have him on there. Pretty cool too. I mean, people curious of how the interviews happen and whatnot. It's various instances. This one was Tristan on Instagram connecting, and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I watched the show, a fan, so got time, and there we go, made it happen." I just love the fact that even asking him and trying to be understanding of it, I get it, but asking him like, "Hey, competition, goals for the season, everything else." We talk about it all across the field. Like there's reasons that players are here, and there's reasons that they moved on from certain players. No, won't name any specifics, but you can figure that one out. Listen to how he talks about even as trying to win out a job. It's do what the team needs me to do. I'm going to do my best. Yes, obviously the goals in competition is to be my best self and show out on the field. But wherever the team needs me, if that's on special teams, great. If that's as the starting safety out there, fantastic. Going to make it happen. But I've very, very seldom do you hear a player out there like you hear in other teams and press conferences of like a get mine, it's all about me. It's team first, and you can't speak enough about that culture.
Well, and also you asked him about Drew Mukuba, who really is the great threat. Sidney Brown is going to start day one just because of seniority here. My guess would be that McCollum is then the 2, and then Mukuba starts the first couple weeks as the 3. I'm sure they're going to move him around because we saw that all OT and minicamp long. Someone starts here, and then there's a third stringer. But Mukuba's the big threat there. I mean, he is the 2nd-round draft pick everyone's raving about, and then you still got Tristan McCollum when you asked him, giving you an honest answer. He's way ahead of where a rookie should be. He's played a lot of football, and that feels exactly what Vic Fangio likes to do with his rookies, especially his first rookie class last year. He wanted people like, Quinyon Mitchell, played a ton of football at Toledo, come out here and learn for a couple of weeks, and then we can hand you the starting job. We'll feel confident enough that you have the football IQ to figure things out. And Mukuba definitely seems to, according to everybody, including McCollum, have that ability. So it's going to be very interesting. But I do think training camp overall, and it's worth mentioning for people listening, we're about 10 days out, whatever it is, the 22nd. They're going to practice on the 23rd. Like the next day they start practicing, and then they'll put pads on within the first week. And then the first training camp game is August 7th. Like it's 16 days from day one, they actually play a training camp or a preseason football game. It's going to go very quickly, but the first 2 weeks, there's a lot of the fog of war situation where, one day you're going to read about this person starting, and one day you're reading about this person looking good, this person looking bad. You got to take it all with a grain of salt. You and I will report what we hear and what we see. But it's always moving, right? We remember that Devin White looked great the first 2 weeks of training camp. I remember last year, it was like Devin White is the guy. He's the linebacker we've been waiting for. Oh my gosh, he still has the juice.
He started the group chat with AJ and Jalen and there was one other guy out there, I think. It's Saquon, maybe.
He was going to change the defensive culture, and then didn't happen. And Nakobe Dean didn't look good. I remember talking to a reporter. I was the guy from who was that? I was messaging somebody asking about Nakobe Dean, and they were like, doesn't look that good. Pretty bad.
You had Brandon Lee Gowton on multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
He was mentioning it.
And
I don't know if that's who it was, but
Brandon's in person. He sees this stuff. He's like, I watched today. Didn't look good. And I obviously believe him. But it just, for people who understand how this thing works, it's going to be a bit of an up and down swing. And the Eagles' entire goal is to just get them ready to go for that first preseason game, because it's going to go very quickly here. We are at the very edge of the cliff, Josh, and it's about to tip over and become pretty exciting.
Thank goodness, to get some meaningful football. We'll say that. But yes, it is, as you say, we take it with a grain of salt. If we based it on last season, Isaiah Rodgers was going to start. Keelan Ringo very briefly, but then Isaiah Rodgers was going to. Then it's all of a sudden Q. What's going on with the defensive line, the edge rushers, like what's that battle going to? There were so many. Bryce Huff was going to be the guy they wanted him to be, I suppose, but it's completely different the first week or two, and then you start to get a little bit more semblances in the joint practices, and then obviously preseason games and moving beyond there. But yeah, safety is naturally one of those biggest spots. Really quickly, I was going to mention, because I was trying to find the exact details, because I mentioned Tristan McCollum was towards the top. So yeah, ranking towards the top with the team leaders in tackles last year in the preseason, 17 tackles, 2 pass breakups, 1 tackle for loss. That was his preseason line for like 2.5 games. So not too bad, and we saw him during the regular season whenever he had to play sparingly. I think he started, if I'm not mistaken, the Giants game when they were resting most of the starters. I think he had like 9 tackles there. So he's shown the ability, and it'll be interesting. We've got multiple of those. Speaking of, let me get to these super chats. We appreciate you guys. I'm a little behind, but MJ Berg 09 with the 5 bomb. There we go. I don't see a comment, but MJ Berg, we appreciate that. You. All the support. Christopher with a 10. There we go.
Okay.
On a Friday. The 10 saying, cheers, guys. Go Birds. Go
Appreciate
Birds.
That. Love that. Just simple go.
Thank you,
go Birds and move on.
Yep.
Love it, Christopher. Thank you.
Sounds like Christopher's having a good Friday too. So good for you. That's the spirits on a Friday. Aisha with a 5. Thank you, Aisha. Says, they keep on saying Hurts has too many weapons, but I would argue Hurts is also a weapon. Our run game works due to him, and without him, we don't win. See, that is a fantastic point, because it immediately makes me think of the Washington game that we lost, right? Because before Jalen goes out, we were going to blow them out 55-23 in that game. Like, that was going to be the NFC Championship game. That was what was going to happen. But then he goes out, and the first run, if I'm not mistaken, or the first couple runs, Saquon breaks one. So we're like, okay, maybe this is all right. We'd be fine without Jalen. We can still do this. And then after that point that Saquon broke off the run, the Eagles had the worst efficiency rating on the ground the entire season. The entire season. 3 quarters of Saquon not being able to get anything going. And that's because if you're running the football, it makes sense to everyone. But Kenny Pickett faking the handoff and going like, oh, maybe I'm going to pull it. Like, no one's falling. There's nothing going to happen, But when Jalen's out there, okay, all of a sudden, there's a little bit more. You got to keep a guy contained. You can't just crash down on Saquon every time, because then Jalen's going to pull it. And we saw that whenever he even came back, was the first game against Green Bay. I know he had the run on. He kind of ripped one off against the Rams too, but I think he had one against Green Bay as well. So it's a night and day difference. That's a fantastic point by Aisha.
Well, and I also saw this photo on Twitter yesterday. It was like Jalen Hurts, was gifted the Eagles situation. It's a picture of Jalen Hurts, Carson Wentz, Jalen Reagor, and one of those no-name running backs that we had, whenever Jalen Hurts was wearing the number 2, right? He was not... He was not presented, I guess the coaching, the organization's great, but he was not presented like this great situation. They realized what they had in him and then built a team around him, truly. This is something that no one ever talks about. I don't want this whole stream about Jalen Hurts. I know there's another comment here talking about Lamar and Jalen, but my last point on Jalen Hurts. The amount of people who just ignore the fact that Philadelphia brought all these weapons in. They didn't bring weapons around Carson Wentz. Now, maybe they thought that, we should have, and so let's try and do with Jalen Hurts. They believed in Jalen Hurts from day one. They're not trading for A.J. Brown, signing Saquon Barkley. They already had Devontae Smith. Like, they're not doing that if they thought that Jalen Hurts was not good enough to win a Super Bowl, and obviously they were correct. So, what are you going to do?
It makes it, we all get it, but it just fascinates me how many times, like, they're gonna forget. They're gonna doubt him again. You go back to, and I've been running through, which I'll probably have this video out tomorrow, but running through the season-long recap of last year, just to kind of go like, oh, what are the top storylines, headlines, things like that. And it fascinated me because, like, you remember it, but to what detail and how many times? It's like, Jalen Hurts is the worst, and then he has a good game, and then the national media, well, hey, maybe Jalen, and then he has a bad game. And it's like, well, Jalen Hurts is terrible again. And then he goes another game, and you're like, yeah, maybe he really is the problem. He's holding this team back. And it back and forth the entire season. And it just feels like, as we said, no matter what he does, it continues to pop up. So the fact that he got the Super Bowl, whatever, people can keep hating on him. He's much better than most all those rankings. Alex with a 5, go back to some safety talk here, says, is Drew Mukuba going to sign his rookie deal, especially with training camp coming up?
Great question.
Yes.
Yeah, that's next week is when I expect this thing to happen. I got a show on this that some of you guys will be watching here pretty shortly. That basically is showing that there's about to be a lot of extensions in the National Football League. Hutchinson's about to get his. Sauce Gardner's about to get his. There are multiple names of guys that are going to sign extensions, which means Reed Blankenship, in my opinion, should be one of them. So, but they want to get these things done before training camp because you don't want to start, the season, day one of camp, running around and not having that long-term injury insurance, essentially, is what it is. So you're going to see a lot of contracts happen in the next 11 days, especially for bigger names around the league. I think Reed should be on there, and I think for sure Mukuba will as well. I don't know why it's taking so long. We've seen this in the past. It's weird, but the NFL has injury guarantees built in, so he could practice, get injured, and still be fine. However, they do need to get that done, but I'd be shocked if they get to, the 22nd next week or 2 weeks from now, and he's not signed. But I agree, it needs to happen.
Yeah, and we saw this. We'll kind of also remind people. We saw this with Keely Ringo. We've seen this with Landon Dickerson. We've seen it every single year with one player, and it takes a little bit longer. But they usually get it signed, whether it's a day. I think that was maybe a day or two before camp for Keely Ringo. But I'm very confident as well that it'll take place, get done. I don't know as much so on Reed Blankenship. Shout out to Anthony DeBona, but his source sharing that previously. No talks with Reed so far.
Really? I didn't know that.
It was about 2 to 3 weeks ago was the initial report, and then checking in, I think as the latest, had not had many talks. So
interesting.
I mean, there's still time. And people bring this up. It's a fair point. Reed Blankenship has the same agent as Terry McLaurin. So Terry McLaurin is probably not going to be at camp, right? Because if I'm Terry McLaurin, I'm not going to be practicing. I'm not going to risk anything until you get me a new contract. Reed Blankenship, I love him. You need to keep the exciting whites together. I believe you need to get something done. But the argument has been thrown out there, the hypothetical is, well, does Reed Blankenship hold out of camp? Do you see him not practicing? I just really can't envision that. And again, if he were to do it, I also would be, hey, look, you got to protect yours. You got to get your bag. First and foremost, take care of your family. All that. He just got married. Congratulations. All that makes sense. But there's something about this culture on the team, and I think it shows you for what Howie did with Saquon. He didn't have to re-up that contract. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman did not have to pay him more money, but it was to, I think, send the message to the team: look, if you play out. If you guys ball out and you play up to the level, we are going to take care of you. That's what this organization does. So if it's taking a little bit longer, or the Eagles are trying to fill things out, just because there maybe has not been specific talks or a lot closer to getting a contract done, again, as of a couple weeks ago, from what Anthony was sharing, they still may have gone to Reed and shared more of the plan, because Howie's not your Joe Shane and, we just going to let you go out there. He's going to give the players more of a notice. And so I'm curious, we'll see. There is more time. Again, we've got 10-ish days, 10 or 12 days. Does something work out before then? Who knows? But it is interesting by the fact that at least a couple weeks ago, hadn't had anything.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd be very, very surprised if they don't talk at all, unless Philadelphia is okay with him going through the season on a final year of his deal. And then you could have a scenario where he's going to go somewhere else. I mean, this is exactly what happened with Josh Sweat this past year. He re-signs for one year, $10 million, whatever it was. I think Philadelphia thought he was going to have an average year, and then they could bring him back on a similar 2 or 3 year contract at $10, $15 million range. Josh Sweat goes crazy, leads the Eagles in sacks, goes nuts in the Super Bowl, and gets this massive deal in the offseason from the different football team, the Arizona Cardinals. That could definitely happen with Reed Blankenship, where he is the best person in the secondary. I mean, Q obviously is there. DeJean is there as well, but Reed could have the most interceptions. He could be the guy, and then he goes to free agency and goes, I mean, X team is offering me $10 million a year more than Philadelphia, $8 million a year more than Philadelphia. Reed has not gotten a big contract at all. UDFA out of college. He's been making between $1 and $3 million a year. A lot for us, very little for secondary players, especially good ones in the NFL. And if he thinks he's a top 10 safety at the end of this season, which he very well could be, maybe money talks, and then Philadelphia's got to figure out the safety spot times 2. Gardner Johnson gone. Now they got to do it again. I hope they get a deal done, but I guess we'll see.
I do too. Yes, and I know it's different position, obviously, for a cornerback and safety, but the money's not crazy far off whenever you're comparing it. And the reason that I say that is just for comparison of Isaiah Rodgers. Like, Zay played really well last year, but it was very limited, right? So you still are kind of taking a chance. He got 2 years for 11, if I'm not mistaken, 2 for 11, 2 for 12, somewhere around there, 8 guaranteed. So absolutely. I mean, if Reed goes out there and plays well, it has to be somewhere in that 10 million range. I mean, the top guys are getting 20 million plus, but it's got to be surely in that market. So I'm gonna be curious, where they go with that as the leader, especially because you don't know about the other safety position. I would love to have one of those locked up and say, hey,
you would think
we're figuring out the other one. Maybe it's our rookie. Maybe it's our former 3rd round pick. Maybe it's a UDFA and Tristan McCollum. But like, someone. Let's have some sort of semblance there.
Now, we do have plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. I go to town Monday through Wednesday, so my next show will be next Thursday. But then that's less than a week until training camp begins, and so full speed ahead. Sure to go ahead and subscribe. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.